Hello and welcome to day two, lesson two for Celebrate You on releasing ourselves from the past. Well, this is a tricky one because many of us hold on to things or experiences that we did have in the past. And if they weren't favorable for us, we tend to hang on to them and think about them with regret, with angst, with sorrow. And because our body doesn't know when our brain starts to think about these things, if it's real or not, if it's happening right now or not, our body will react as if it is. And so, if there are things in our past that we are disappointed in ourselves over, or wish we could have had a do over, or really just wish it never happened, when we start to think about it, we create within ourselves a reaction that actually feels as if it's happening right now. And I think for many of us, the forgiveness we need and need to give to ourselves is really tough to do. We're so quick to forgive others. I mean, honestly, I'll just speak for myself. I am. If somebody asks for forgiveness and I am hurt by what they did or said, I am willing to extend the olive branch. But for myself, for whatever reason, I tend to have higher standards, or I judge myself way too much to offer myself any kind of forgiveness over it. And I rethink about it and I rehash it. And gosh, I replay it as if I'm doing it again. And what we really need to remember is that that was our younger selves. We did the best we could with the information we had, with the person we were at the time. And I think for many of us, if we can just really start to look at the importance of releasing ourselves from not carrying around the burdens that we did as a younger self, or even if it wasn't so long ago that we may have done something, to forgive ourselves is really critical in order to be able to move forward. There's many women that I've met along the way that will talk about wishing that they hadn't done a certain thing or that they have regrets. And really, those regrets just eat them up. They think of them anytime a related topic comes up, or if somebody starts to have a conversation with regards to whatever their experience was, they start to feel themselves ashamed, or that shame based feeling starts to creep up into them. And they feel like people will be judging them because they sure as heck are judging themselves. And it is one of those things that's tricky to give away, because I say that because when we develop a pattern or a routine, and that part of that routine is to judge ourselves over and over and to bring up those, wish I wouldn't have done that moment, um, we create what we develop as a habit, which is to critique ourselves, to pretend, if you will, that, or not pretend, but to rehash it as if we could have had different choices, which we did, but we chose not to do it differently. It is done. It is over. So change what you can about that. If there's apologies to be made, even if it's a long time ago, honestly, there is a real strong power in being able to walk back and say, this may not even be something you're thinking about, but I am thinking about it. And I just want to apologize for that. I wasn't my best self. And you don't need to really go into the story. You don't need to rehash a lot of it, but the pureness of your apology is really refreshing for a lot of people. And it also refreshes for yourself that you can move forward and you sort of put a period at the end of the sentence. So, if that's something you need to do, then by all means, figure out how you can make that happen for yourself in order to move on. But it takes practice to forgive yourself and to say, I am releasing myself from the past. I am not that same person. I have not practiced those behaviors in a really long time. I chose to make a change and I'm celebrating that. So, for all of us who are listening and remembering some moments in time, that's all they were moments in time. and you did the best you could, honestly. And yeah, maybe you have some regrets, and with the lens that you can see through now because of experiences and our age and the wisdom we have gathered, now we know, right? We would do it differently. So if we are ever faced with that same or similar situation, we know that we can take a different path. The other thing is that if you continue to hang on to these concerns or angsts and moments of despair, you have to ask yourself, what's the payoff? Why would I continue to bring these into my life now? Why would I continue the same conversation or use the same words to describe the situation I experienced from before now? What's my payoff? If your payoff is that it's become a habit to kind of beat yourself up over it, you really need to examine that and understand, why would I want to continue to do that to myself when I'm really, truly trying to move forward? There's a lot of us that hang on to these things, and then we develop what we have as our self reputation, for the person who doesn't care or says what they want and doesn't care the outcome. And if that's changed for us, if we've really tried to recreate a reputation for ourselves, then it's okay to start practicing that new reputation that we're trying to develop. If we're trying to be a kinder self, a gentler self, then it's okay to practice those things. We've all done things in our past, whether it's from, growing up in a family that had um, not a lot of love shared, or maybe there was people in our lives that were making poor decisions that directly or indirectly impacted us and changed who we maybe would have rather have been. And it impacted the decisions we made. We've all been there. And we have to release ourselves from that which we were years ago. There's something really freeing about that, to be able to say, yeah, you know what? I wish I could have had a do over. And in fact, I feel like I could blush right now thinking about that. But the truth is, I'm not that same person. I wouldn't do those same things. And I do ask for forgiveness for that. And sometimes we have to ask for the forgiveness to ourselves. We're our biggest critic. And the words we use to think of our personality, to the words we use to describe ourselves, those are pretty powerful things because we think them in our head. And again, if we continue to think those things and we continue to say those things out loud, or if we continue to believe that that's who we are, then that's who we are, and we stay stuck. The other thing is that we also have to remember that our reputation, it lies within the minds of others. So if you're wanting to let go of it, remember that you don't have to keep that reputation alive and well. That if you think you have people who think a certain way about you, that's on them, right? Because you're moving forward. You're not responsible for trying to get other people to change their opinion of you, to change their beliefs around you, because honestly, that's old and that's who you used to be. And if you move forward, then you're putting yourselves in the position of letting people judge you by the behaviors you have now. And the truth is, it really doesn't matter what other people are starting to think about you, because it's really about what you think of yourself. So live in such a way that you are proud of yourself, because you're with yourself all the time. Do those things that are important to you, and try really hard to let go of trying to be right. We don't do everything right all the time. There's no right or wrong way sometimes. It's just about following our heart and who it is that we believe we are from the inside out. It's really more empowering to be present to ourselves each day than it is to try to rehash yesterdays. We're here. It's this moment. You're listening to me now. You don't have to try to figure out how to fix what happened days ago. It's about moving forward and trying to make the best of what you can within the time you have. So if you start to look at your workbook and you start to see what some of the questions are, it's going to be important for you to feel comfortable to just have these moments where you're going to ask yourself some really poignant questions. And I think how we process events in our life that we're part of is what creates the resiliency in ourselves to move forward. So again, how we rehash old tapes, how we decide what we did or didn't do perfectly or right or the best way. Remember forgiveness. Remember, this is, we're trying and we want to do the best we can. We have lots more information. We're wiser than we were when we were our 20 something self or any other something self. We're in this day today. The other thing is that you have to be able to differentiate between the abilities to understand what you can control and what you can't. And I think there lies a really important lesson that many of us think we can control too many things, that we think that we're able and capable to just make the situation go a certain way. And honestly, we can't. The only person we can ever can control is ourselves. And for some of us, that's a huge letdown because we'd really like to get in there and change and control a situation or people and the way they view things. But I'm asking you to find some relief in that, to know that you're only responsible for yourself and where other people are at and what they're doing and their decisions and their beliefs and their path in life. That's on them. And you, boy, you need to take a look at your own self because we're enough work, really. We're enough energy spenders just on our own self alone. And so that's why it's to prioritize you. What is it that you need to do in order for you to let go and release yourself of the past? All right. So when we look at our workbook, if you could turn to the page that says releasing self from past, the first question up there is to describe a time when you valued someone else's opinion over your own. Describe that. And what were you feeling? If you look to the next question, what were some of the thoughts you were having when you allowed somebody else to determine an outcome for you, to do something that you knew wasn't right for you? What was that like? Describe that situation. And then, likewise, describe a time when you said or took action solely based on your own values, your own opinions, your own beliefs. And what did you learn from that? What was the difference that you felt? What were some of the thoughts that you had? And do you realize that when we do that, we make our decisions based on what's important to us? We don't ruminate about them like we do when we make decisions based on others and what they think and how we think we'll be judged. Isn't that interesting? So when it feels right and we do right by ourselves, it's less likely that we're going to spend a lot of time being in angst over it or rehashing it. But boy, the minute we start to make decisions or have actions based on what others think of us or need from us, that's when we might be carrying some burden around. That might be what we need to start focusing on. When we speak our truth, when we live in our truth, we feel freer, we feel less burdened, and we don't look back as much. So, the lesson for today is really pay attention on how we're going to release ourselves from the past because all you have right now is this moment. Celebrate you, and we'll talk to you soon.